Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the February 11th, 2025 Phoenixville Borough Council meeting. Tonight, we are conducting our monthly Borough Council meeting, both in person and virtually via the Zoom platform. We thank you for joining us tonight. During the public participation and public hearing portions of tonight's agenda, community members wishing to make comment may raise their hand digitally on the Zoom platform. A member of our staff will unmute you, announce your name, and then you'll be able to make comment to council. We will start with the members of the public who are joining us here in council chambers tonight, and then move to those joining us remotely. We do have two public comment periods tonight, one towards the beginning, one towards the end, and participation is limited to once per public participation session. So with that, thank you for joining us tonight. We will now begin with the Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we can start with the roll call.
Ms. Berkeley.
Present.
Mr. Carmenito. Ms. Dugan. Mr. Kirkner.
Here.
Mr. Moore.
Here.
Mrs. Strenfeld.
Here.
Mr. Weiss.
Present.
Mr. Ewald.
Here.
Mayor Ursler.
Here.
Managers here, assistants here, chiefs here, solicitors here. You have a quorum.
Thank you. With that, that takes us to section 3 of tonight's agenda, which is our first round of public comment. So any members of the public joining us here in council chambers, we will start internally. If you make your way to the podium, we do ask that you sign the sign-in sheet with your name and address. That helps with our minutes. And then when you're making public comment, please announce your name and your address so that we know who we're speaking with.
Mr. President, if I could, before we start, I just wanted to share that if you are here to provide public comment about a specific land development being considered this evening, that while you're welcome to speak now, you will be provided an opportunity later in the meeting to provide comment on each specific application before council votes on them.
Good evening. My name is Zachary Ziobro. I wish to make public comment. I don't think this falls under what you were just talking about, the South Street or Reservoir Park Trail connection. Is that what you're referring to? Okay, thank you. So anyway, this path has been discussed for some time now. It started as a gravel path that would be constructed from Dayton Street to South Street, and then on from South Street to Res Park. What we learned in the latest Parks and Rec meeting was that the borough cannot dutifully construct a path in the segment from Dayton Street to South Street, and this leaves the remaining segment from South Street to Res Park in question. I believe that the construction of a trail is equally unviable in this area for a number of reasons. While I do not know the width of the Dayton Street segment, the South Street segment certainly has a similar minimum width. The property line that the trail will be built against has an abrupt, nearly 90-degree turn and would turn the trail into a switchback. The easement is situated poorly on the lot and relative to my home, and each morning I stand next to my 9-month-old son playing in the family room and look at the easement survey stake 15 feet out my family room window. I work in my garden and see the easement stake 5 feet off my existing fence line. This trail disrupts an otherwise reasonable buffer between private and public. Overall, the reasoning for this trail has been cited as the Borough Comprehensive Plan Goals 1.2 and 1.3, which both deal with increasing pedestrian access and cyclist access to trail systems and borough and park amenities. And yes, on paper, this will add a trail that was not previously there. But who does it serve? This trail is purely utilitarian and as such should be assessed by its usage and the access it provides. No one south of Fillmore or west of South Street will use this trail. This leaves the neighborhoods north on Dayton Street and the Ledges community. However, if you measure from those northern neighborhoods, people would have to go out of their way to use this trail access as opposed to using existing sidewalk infrastructure to enter Reservoir Park or the rec center area. Additionally, if you measure from the deepest part of the Ledges, it is almost 600 feet further for someone to use this trail connection as opposed to just walking down the sidewalk on Fillmore Street to reach Reservoir Park or the rec center area. Even if someone were to take that extra distance, you cannot push a stroller through a gravel path. You cannot use a road bike on a gravel path. I would imagine jogging would be unpleasant in loose gravel, and many folks specifically avoid gravel paths to walk their dogs. Not to mention, This trail goes through one of the only areas of native grassland in Res Park and runs directly against Comprehensive Plan Objective A2, as well as sub-goals 2.2 and 2.1, which deal with keeping parks ecologically dynamic areas and preserving critical habitat for wildlife. Outside of the community garden, this easement contains some of the only unmowed native plants and grasses in the whole of Res Park, which are incredibly important for native insect and bird populations. Tonight, there is a motion to not pursue this project and discharge the easement back to my family. I would urge council to take this action. The trail was petitioned against 20 years ago and was petitioned against this past November, and the fundamental problems with its placement are not something that will change over time. Thank you.
Thanks, Zach. Any members joining us via Zoom wishing to make any comment in the first round? And we will have another round as well as comment during some of the land development issues, proposals. Okay, seeing none, we'll close the first round of public participation. We don't have any presentations on tonight's agenda, but I do have one comment from prior to tonight's gaveling in. Borough Council did hold an executive session to discuss the following 5 items: a matter of real estate related to 21 Emmett Street, and a property without an address being UPI number 15-5-195. We also discussed attorney-client privileged communications regarding contract negotiations with PA American Water Company. We also discussed matters of personnel related to Civil Service Commission's preparation of eligibility lists. We also discussed a matter of real estate and litigation related to 395 Bridge Street, and discussed a quasi-judicial deliberation and attorney-client privileged communication related to 224-226 Nut Road land development application. With that, we move into section 5 of tonight's agenda, which is our consent agenda. A lot on it tonight. Are there any items that any members of council are wishing to have further discussion on? And if not, what is council's pleasure?
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda for tonight's meeting.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Berkeley, second by Mr. Weiss. Questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. And we'll move into section 6 of tonight's agenda, which is communications and council participation. Any comments from council or updates from council this month? Ms. Berkeley, kick us off.
I just wanted to thank all of the borough's staff, our first responders. We had a very successful, very big party last weekend at Veterans Field. It was very successful, probably one of the best, and we were dealing with a lot of mud and a lot of ice. So I really appreciate everybody coming together and it being a really organized, well thought out event, despite how big it is, how dangerous it is. And really appreciate all of our staff for being out there and giving it their all on a really, really cold night.
Thank you, Ms. Berkeley. Mr. Moore.
Yeah, if I could just ask the borough manager to kind of explain the upcoming, at the end of this month, meeting concerning the zoning task force public meeting. And I'm a member of that, and we've been doing a lot of work, and we have a set of very important proposals to bring to the public.
Sure. On, excuse me, on Wednesday, February 26th, beginning at 6 o'clock PM at the Recreation Center at 501 Franklin, we'll have what is called a public workshop where we will take all of the information over the past near 2 years that we've looked at, the various chapters of parts of chapter 27, the zoning ordinance, and have addressed the majority of the information that is in there. We will have poster boards of various sections of the written components, and then some mapping to show some recommended changes to mapping. And we'll spend about an hour, allow the public to walk around. We'll have various members of the teams around the tables to ask questions and give you Post-it notes to write and jot down things that may be of concern, recommendations, things that you don't like, things that you do like, et cetera. And then at 7 o'clock, we'll get into more of a dialogue with our consultants to try to be responsive to any questions from the floor. And at that point, we'll take all that information, coalesce it, take it back to another meeting of the task force, a final meeting of the task force to call all that together, put it in the format that we will then present to the various planning commissions, our PC, Regional Planning Commission, Chester County Planning Commission, and then be generally in position to take those final recommendations, put it together for council as a ordinance for scheduling and advertising, and then ultimately passage of an ordinance. And I don't know if the solicitor has anything to add to that, but I defer.
Sure, I guess the only thing I would add is, once we have something from the zoning task force that we expect is in a final form, to present to Borough Council will have to hold a hearing on the consideration of that ordinance amendment before any consideration is permitted.
Any other updates from council or questions from council? Okay, seeing none, we'll close that round and move on to the mayor's report. Mayor Urschler.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for those of you who are joining us here today in the room and those who are joining us virtually. I just want to start with a couple of items that are coming up over the next month. On the 18th of February, Citizens Advocacy is having their Play with a Purpose. If you're interested in attending that, Citizen Advocacy works to support individuals in our community with a variety of abilities, and they partner them with advocates here in our community. The organization itself has been in Phoenixville for decades, and so if you have a chance to check them out, please do so. And that's going to be held at People's Light Theater. On the 28th, Orion Communities, which is right in historic downtown Phoenixville, is having their casino night at Rivercrest. More information is available on their website. Orion Communities works specifically to help our neighbors who may need additional assistance if they are going through vulnerable times. Also, congratulations to the Phoenixville Phantom fundraiser, which will be held in March. They've already sold out their tickets, but that helps to support the Phoenixville Community Health Education Foundation, which helps to support programs within our school district without using our tax dollars. So thank you to the Phoenixville Community Education Foundation. On February 15th, this coming Saturday at 2:58 p.m., Grimes AME will be hosting their annual Black History Month celebration. Everyone is certainly invited to attend, and we would encourage you to check out their website to find out more information. Upcoming on the 24th of this month, it's a Monday, will be our Congresswoman Chrissy Houlihan's State of the Sixth. That will take place here in Phoenixville. And if you visit the Congresswoman's website, you'll be able to find out more information and RSVP for that event. So that will be here in Phoenixville. It is actually her sixth State of the Sixth. So 6 times she's doing it, and that will take place right here in Phoenixville. Finally, I just want to add a little piece of trivia for today. But in 1933, Phoenixville had its own professional football club called the Union. And one of the players' name was Lud Ray, and he partnered up in 1933 with Bert Bell, who purchased what was called the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets franchise, and that franchise eventually became the Philadelphia Eagles. And so, just in case Phoenixville wasn't important enough, we also play an important role in the founding of the Philadelphia Eagles. And so, congratulations, certainly to our Philadelphia Eagles. Thank you so much, Mr. President.
Go Birds. We'll move on to appointments. There are no items under tonight's agenda, or no applications for appointment tonight for our various boards and commissions. We currently do not have any vacancies, which is an occurrence every 2 or 3 years. So we do appreciate all of our volunteers who do step up. There are 3 upcoming spots for renewal or reconsideration. So if anybody is interested in joining, there are spots on Planning Commission and Human Relations that we're waiting to see on reappointments, but please reach out to your council people or staff if you're interested in serving with any of our various boards and commissions. We do not have any items under new business or public hearings, which brings us to section 11 of tonight's agenda, which is our resolutions and ordinances, with 3 items to consider. Our first one is a resolution for granting an extension to the Phoenixville Plaza pad sites. Scott, you want to kick us off?
Sure, I'll give some background on this. As council knows, in May of 2023, by resolution number 2023-18, council approved the land development for Phoenixville Plaza, known as the pad sites, which was the Starbucks and Tommy's Car Wash. This project had a land development and financial security agreement that was entered into on December 14th of 2023. The project approval is protected for 5 years under the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code. But our development agreements provide a shorter time period in order to, for the completion of the development, in order to keep tabs on the financial security that's associated with the projects. As a result, the developer is asking for a 1-year extension to build the development. As the developer is still well within its 5-year MPC provided window, the resolution proposed before you today is to grant such an extension, provided that the financial security associated with the project is also extended for an additional year, and the developers enter into an amendment substantially similar to what's attached to your resolution in order to memorialize the extension. All other terms and conditions of the land development and financial security agreement will remain the same.
Thank you, Scott. What is council's pleasure for item A?
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution officially granting an extension of time for the completion of the development known as Phoenixville Plaza pad sites previously approved by resolution 2023-18.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Berkeley, second by Mr. Weiss. Any questions on this simple renewal? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0 with Mr. Kirkner out of the room. Next up is more exciting. We have a emergency procurement resolution for ammonium sulfate. It sounds like Scott, you want to give us some background on this one?
Sure. As you know, leading up to every year, we bid out the chemicals that we need in order to run our water treatment and sanitary sewer treatment plants. Brenntag Northeast was a successful bidder for ammonium sulfate, which is one of those chemicals, but was unable to provide us with it, which is a chemical critical to our water treatment. The availability of clean drinking water is paramount to the health, safety, and public welfare. And since we were down to a 10 to 14-day supply of ammonium sulfate, the borough purchased ammonium sulfate from Univar, who was the second highest bidder when we originally bid this. While I believe the emergency provisions of the borough code allow us to do this without approval from council, I think it's prudent for council to approve these exercise of emergency powers because we want to make sure we're fully transparent with the public.
Thanks, Scott. Questions from council? Any other background needed? Seeing none, what is council's pleasure?
I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution pursuant to PA CSA section 1402 D 1.1, affirming the nature of the emergency procurement of ammonium sulfate for the borough's water plant.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Moore, second by Ms. Berkeley. Questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Lastly, under resolutions and ordinances tonight, we have a resolution terminating agreement for that very same product. Scott?
Sure. So as mentioned before, Brenntag Northeast was a successful bidder for ammonium sulfate. Couldn't provide it to us and requested to be released from its contract to provide the ammonium sulfate. Univar, the second highest bidder, where we procured the emergency supply from, has agreed to supply it at the price originally bid for the rest of 2025. As a result, this motion seeks approval to terminate the Northeast Brenntag contract as it relates to ammonium sulfate and enter into an agreement with Univar to supply the same.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution terminating the agreement with the 2025 supplier of ammonium sulfate and authorizing the next highest bidder as the replacement supplier.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Weiss, second by Ms. Berkeley. Questions on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. That takes us to reports of committees, boards, and commissions. We will start with Ms. Dugan and the Historical and Architectural Review Board. Ms. Dugan.
Okay, I guess we should make a motion here to start the conversation, but given that I was one of the people who did not vote for these things, I would appreciate it if somebody else would do that for me.
I got you, Dana. So I'll make a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness for signage for 35 Bridge Street as recommended by HARB by vote 5-1 in their action memo of February 3rd, 2025.
Second.
Okay. Now, the problem here is, first of all, we're having a problem with people putting up, it's not just this one, it's the next one too, and it looks like it's the same applicant for both of these. And these people get their stuff put up before it even goes through HARB or comes to council or gets approved. And I don't know if we're finding these people, but we should be. This should not be happening ever. They should not be allowed to do this. And secondly, on this specific one, because I have issues with both of these and the way they appear. This one is just this was the sign, and it's like we have a problem with aesthetics here because it's like nobody's trying to come up, make something look nice. And it's like, you should come to the meetings at HARB and discuss it with us to think maybe we can give you some advice, or maybe we could help you out a little bit here. But it's since nobody seems it's necessary to show up to any of these things, they're not even engaging in any conversation. It's the same issue with the second thing too, with just so that I don't have to run back and explain it. There's like I know that HARB does not have any control. HARB doesn't have any control over color, but things like orange and black and everything, it's jarring coming into town. These things don't look like they're appropriate for the HARB district. And just because you've got, your whole entire logo is like a cartoonish looking thing. It doesn't, you can always there's been McDonald's that have worked with these things that have tried to, they've come in and worked with the area so that they don't look quite as out of place. And generally that's my problem with both of the next two things, or both of these two things, but. So.
Thank you, Ms. Dugan. I don't disagree. I think a number of these signs feel like they are put up by sign makers who have never been to town. So it is disappointing to see applications that are so misplaced. Mr. Moore.
So we could turn it down based upon, even though the harbor recommended it, we could turn it down simply because we've been convinced by our colleague that they're simply not using the board in an appropriate way. Is that?
I'll defer to Scott on that one.
Yeah.
So the HARB is an advisory body. It is not a decision-making body. So the ultimate decision is up to this council. However, in order to deny the application, you have to deny it on the basis that it does not meet the standards of the HARB district. There are other provisions and enforcement penalties that can and should be pursued if we determine that someone violated the HARB district requirement that you apply prior to installing a sign. And I think that's probably something that the manager and I will have to look at and get some teeth to.
I mean, I've certainly noticed signs around town that I know have not gone to us as you're around town. So certainly a discussion to have perhaps outside of this. And I imagine engaging both you, the manager, and then probably our codes department.
Well, I think it's just with these things, I feel like it would be best for someone to show up and discuss with us what would be an appropriate way to fix it. So, sending it back to HARB and hoping that someone will come in to discuss it with us. Is that something that we could pull off? Is that something we're allowed to do?
Unfortunately not. Pursuant to our ordinances, we have to make a decision within 45 days, which means we would not be able to send it back to HARB, nor would we be able to table this until our next meeting.
If this were to be denied, though, wouldn't the natural progression then we follow up with them, explain the process, and then they could reapply to HARP, correct?
I'm sorry, if this were what?
Like, if we were denied to deny this today, or either, they could then come back to Harb with a new application, correct? Or they could repeal our decision?
They could appeal our decision, or they could come back with a different application, or they could do both. Certainly, if we deny an application, it should be legally justified, in order to, survive an appeal.
Does the fact that the Harb voted, an advisory board?
They didn't like it either, but they just didn't think they had the right to.
Okay. In terms of providing that advice, okay, but we could.
If I may, Mr. President, there are standards for signs.
Yeah.
And you look at this sign and it's a very plain sign. Gold on brown. I'm sorry, it makes me think of a reference in a John Irving novel that I will not share here. But in any event, I mean, looking at this sign, it doesn't look that much different from the other signs that have been approved. I mean, it's plain block type, sans serif block type. There's nothing historically significant or representative about it, but I mean, we've approved equally bland signs in the past.
And this is kind of exactly my point. We keep on approving these things and now we're setting a standard that that's okay that we do this. And some of the standards we're setting are awfully low. And somebody's going to push it to even lower and lower. If we keep letting this happen, we have to push back sometime.
I have to agree. If they didn't work the process correctly, then, and we have the authority to challenge them to do so by rejecting the sign, I think we should do that. I agree. I think otherwise, we've had this discussion multiple times over the past few years that the Harb doesn't seem to have any teeth. We have the teeth. We just have to exercise it. And I grant it's just somebody's sign, but okay.
I just want to be clear, you cannot deny this application because you're unhappy with how the process went. If you are inclined to deny this application, it has to be based on the fact that you think this sign does not meet the standards and requirements of the Harb district.
I'll put on the record that I'm convinced by my colleague Dana Dugan that it doesn't meet the requirements of the Harb district.
Our consultants and staff have.
Mr. President, if I may.
Right. Sorry, Ms. Crooker.
Yes, looking at the application, it doesn't say anything about material used, unless I'm missing something. But I don't see anything about material. And I think you could probably deny it on that basis because you don't know what the material is. Yeah, I just went through the whole application. I don't see anything about material. I mean, this ordinance, the Harb ordinance does say certain materials. I mean, we don't know if this is plastic, gypsum, wood, kryptonite. I don't know.
Yes.
If I might make it cut to the chase, you're going to vote on this, but if you were to deny this, I would say that you would deny it. The application fails to retain and preserve the overall form, materials, and details that are important in defining the architectural and historical character of the building, site, and overall downtown historic district.
What he said.
I believe we have a motion. Or sorry, we have a motion on the floor already for approval.
Well, if the vote is 0
Yeah.
or better,
Yep.
it's a denial.
Got it.
So,
No. No, we would need a vote on approval first,
Right.
Yeah.
And then the denial.
and then we would need a second motion. Or you can withdraw the motion, whichever you prefer.
Mr. Solicitor, do you have any?
Microphone.
Do you have any? Do you have any recommendation as far as how we move forward with the motion on the floor as opposed to?
So the motion on the floor is to approve the application.
Correct.
The two options are to vote on the motion to approve the application or to withdraw the motion.
Correct. Is there anything that would be more legally
There-
advisable or both just
there's-
as sound?
Both are just as sound. You kind of choose one or the other, based on the voices you hear. If it appears to be more of a split voice, I would suggest that, you vote on the motion. If there seems to be a consensus in opposition to the motion, then sometimes withdrawing it is slightly easier.
Okay, I'm fine with withdrawing my motion.
Mr. Weiss, do you agree with that as you seconded?
Yes, I do.
Is there a new motion on the floor to be offered?
I want to say exactly what Mr. Crack said when he was explaining what it should say. So could you repeat that? And I will then move to
So
do that.
your motion would be to deny the application as it fails to retain and preserve the overall form, materials, and details that are important in defining the architectural and historic character of the building, site, and overall downtown historic district.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Dugan, second by Mr. Kirkner. Questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Ms. Dugan, you have one more.
Should we do the same thing on this one or?
It's your decision.
Well, I guess I'll make a motion to deny the certificate of appropriateness for the signage for 37 Bridge Street as at 34 Bridge Street because it fails to what was the rest of it, what you said? Because you were reading.
First, I believe you mean 37 Bridge Street.
Did I say 30? What did I say? Yeah, 37.
And on the same conditions as your prior motion?
Yes.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Dugan, second by Mr. Kirkner. Questions on the motion for 37 Bridge.
Yes, regarding this also same thing, same issue with the application. There is nothing in here about materials, whether these are plastic stick-ons or decals or paint or whatever. And I don't know yet, it's just a hideous looking sign.
Yes, it is.
Even though I like orange and black on a hockey sweater. I mean, it's this, yeah.
Very good. Any other questions on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Ms. Dugan, anything else under HARP tonight?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to Planning Commission, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple of things, we have 3 projects for review and Borough Council consideration this evening. The process will be that the solicitor will summarize the project. The applicant is here to answer any questions. And then we will have public comment, and then we will have the motion to approve or not approve. I just did want to point out that during our most recent Planning Commission meeting, we also had a reorganization in terms of, so Catherine Bianco is now the new chairperson of the Planning Commission. And Amanda, got her last name, is now the new vice chair. So that staffing has been adopted. So pretty busy couple of months we've had. And so the first item on the agenda we'll discuss is the project at the development for the Oakwood Apartments expansion. Oakwood Apartments are on the Bridge Street, Western Bridge Street, toward the end of the borough.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moore. So I'll give a brief background. This application concerns certain parcels of land located at 1042, 1044, 10 and 1050 West Bridge Street and 623 Dagger Avenue, collectively consisting of approximately 3.91 acres, which parcels are more particularly identified as UPI numbers 1512-196, 1512-197, 1512-197.2, and 1512-197.4. They currently are improved with 4 existing 3-story apartment buildings housing 96 units and 3 detached single-family dwellings, as well as 1 single-story masonry structure, along with 2 paved parking lots and other improvements. The applicant proposes the consolidation of the 4 parcels, demolition of the 3 single-family homes, and the development of the site with 2 new multifamily residential buildings containing 32 new apartment dwellings, along with restriping and improvements to the parking lot, resulting in 149 parking spaces, sanitary sewer main extension, sidewalk and crosswalk improvements, landscaping, lighting, stormwater management, and related improvements. The applicant has requested 1 waiver to pay funds to support the affordable housing and downtown economic revitalization program instead of a fee in lieu for recreation space. And after reviewing the project at several meetings, the Planning Commission voted unanimously at its October 10th, 2024 meeting to conditionally recommend approval of the application. This motion was slightly unique in that it required the applicant to meet certain conditions prior to council consideration. All of those conditions, the borough consultants have deemed fulfilled. So with that, I believe we have the applicant's engineer with us this evening.
Good evening. I'm Glenn Kalczewski with Bursick and Associates, and I'm here representing the property owner SYT Oakwood Apartments LLC, and I'll answer any questions if you have them.
Before I turn it over to council for questions, did you have anything you wanted to add to my summary?
No, that was very good. I mean, we
Okay.
have, there are some, besides the sanitary sewer extension in Deeger Avenue, we do have some roadway improvements along West Bridge Street also. We're putting in new curbing along West Bridge Street. And there'll be a new street light going in at West Bridge Street and Deeger Avenue. And then we're also doing a new crosswalk across the existing larger parking lot adjacent to West Bridge Street to help with pedestrian access.
Okay, any questions from council?
Could you just reiterate what the 1 variance was requested? Waiver.
So there is a fee in lieu of recreation space, and the applicant has asked to pay a sum towards the affordable housing fund rather than pay the recreation fee in lieu.
Questions for council. So looking at the images, this looks like it's going to be a similar, pretty much match set to what's existing with the other apartments that are on site.
That's
Okay.
correct. The existing buildings have like a brick exterior, and the proposed apartment buildings will also have a brick exterior.
I was wondering if you could provide a little more detail on the improvements that are happening on the site, like you're taking down some buildings, and in terms of what improvements are being made for open space and landscaping.
So in the northwest corner is where there's 3 existing residential dwellings right now, which are not in the best condition. So those 3 existing residential dwellings will be removed. And then there's 2 new apartment buildings going in that area. For open space area, if you move off to the right a little bit, there's a underground stormwater facility there. And that area is like a courtyard area where they will be doing some like a new patio area, some sidewalk areas, and some walls like around the patios to dress that area up a little bit. There's already kind of a courtyard area there now, but they're going to be making it a little bit nicer in there.
Any other questions from council? All right, with that, seeing none, I would ask if there any public comment on this application? Any public comment on Zoom on this application?
Mr. Denlinger, there's no hands raised.
Okay, I will close the public comment period on this application and I would entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to, the Council Borough of Phoenixville officially approve the preliminary final subdivision and land development plan for the development known as the Oakwood Apartments expansion with all the codicils and rules as noted in the resolution number 2025.
Second.
We have a motion for approval from Mr. Moore with a second by Mr. Weiss. Any questions on the motion from council? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-1.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you. Have a good night. Mr. Moore with your second item.
Yes, the second project that we will be discussing from the Planning Commission is the project called the Crispin Street subdivision. This is on the north side. It's a similar project to one that we approved and was built about a year and a half or so ago. And is a group of several homes to be built as well as a preserving an existing home. Let the solicitor explain it in more detail.
Sure. So this application concerns two parcels of land located at 10 and 17 Crispin Street, collectively consisting of approximately 22,347 square feet, which parcels are more particularly identified as UPI numbers 515-336 and 15-5-338. They are currently improved with one single family detached dwelling and a budding paved driveway with an entrance off Crispin Street, as well as a second paved driveway leading to a detached garage, as well as a shed, brick patio, and several stone walls. The applicant proposes to consolidate the properties and subdivide them into 5 lots, with Lot 1 retaining the existing single-family home and the development of Lots 2 through 5, each with a residential duplex dwelling unit, paved driveway accommodating the parking of 4 vehicles, retaining walls, concrete sidewalk landscaping, lighting, stormwater management facilities, and related improvements. The applicant has requested 3 waivers. The first is to allow a driveway to be 43.2 feet from an intersection. The second is to not install curb along the shared driveways. And the third is related to the preservation of trees, which approval would be conditioned on the preservation of an existing 14-inch diameter tree at the rear of Lot 2 and providing at least 9 street trees and additional landscaping. After reviewing the project at several meetings, the Planning Commission unanimously voted at its January 9, 2025 meeting to conditionally recommend approval of the application. I see that we have the applicant's engineer here this evening. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Commanda?
It's an excellent summary. I'll introduce myself, Joel Commanda with Inland Design. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. I'm happy to answer any questions you have, but I think that's a great overview of the project.
Questions from council? Mr. Kirkner.
Yes, I have a question about the waiver for the driveway near the intersection. What intersection is that? Well, that we're talking about here?
So we're talking about the intersection of Heckle and Crispin Street here. And this is the driveway in question. There, just because of the way the lot's laid out, we were not able to get it any further away. And, you know, in addition, we were asked by the Planning Commission and the consultants to have a full double width driveway for each lot to promote access and maneuverability for the cars there. So that also was an impact on it.
Okay, and that's a rather low impact intersection, I would say.
Yeah.
It's not like on the other end where you have the intersection with Route 113.
Correct. And Crispin is one way
Yeah.
in this area. This is the end of the neighborhood here. So it is not a high traffic area.
Okay. And these are duplexes with 4 off-street parking spaces for each
Uh,
unit? For
Two,
each?
two
building.
spaces for each unit, 4
Yes.
for each building,
Yes.
correct.
Thank you.
Is this an upstairs, downstairs, or side by side?
Upstairs, downstairs. And they're, for those who are familiar, they're going to be the same as the ones that were just built along, I'm sorry, what's the street up to the north there?
Evergreen.
Evergreen, thank you. So same layout as those, if you've been through there.
And I'll just point out that they did preserve the older house as part of this development. I mean, they could have conceivably
Yeah, this
taken like
Lot 1
unit
here.
number 1 and, demolished and put up something more. So I appreciate that. It's a neat little old house, so it helps preserve that part of the character in the neighborhood.
Any other questions from council? All right, seeing none, I will open it up to public comment on this application. Is there anyone here in person who would like to make a public comment on this application? Seeing none, is there anyone on Zoom who would like to make a comment on this application?
Mr. Denlinger, I see no hands raised.
All right, with that, I will close the public comment period and entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution of officially approving the preliminary final subdivision and land development plan for the development known as Crispin Street subdivision.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Moore and a second by Mr. Weiss. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And the third project is for our consideration tonight is the preliminary final subdivision land development plan for the development known as 226 Nut Road, which is just west of the Dunkin' Donuts and is construction of a 4-story apartment building on 2 lots there.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. I'll give a quick background. This application concerns 2 parcels of land located at 224 and 226 Nut Road, consisting approximately of 15,000 square feet. Parcels are more particularly identified as UPI numbers 1513665 and 1513666, which are each currently improved with 2-story single-family semi-detached dwellings and related garages and parking areas. The applicant proposes the consolidation of the 2 parcels, demolition of the existing improvements, and the development of the property with a 4-story multifamily building with 16 apartment units, a paved parking area comprised of 20 parking spaces, including 2 EV parking spaces, 5-foot concrete sidewalks, trash enclosure area, landscaping, lighting, stormwater management facilities, and related improvements. After reviewing the project at numerous meetings, the Planning Commission recommended approval of this application at its January 9th, 2025 meeting by a vote of 5-0-1, meaning there was 1 abstention. There are no waivers requested for this application. I see Mr. Murray is here tonight for the applicant. Mr. Murray, is there anything you would like to add?
Mr. President, may I raise a point of order and direct a question to the solicitor? I have a family member who has retained a colleague of Mr. Murray's for a legal matter. Shall I recuse myself from this? Or would I be within my right to recuse myself from this matter?
I think you would be within your right to recuse
Okay.
yourself.
Now, I'm going to recuse myself.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kirk. Mr. Murray.
Thank you. Mike Murray with the law firm of O'Donnell, Weiss and Matei here on behalf of the applicant. With me also, I have Zach Hoffman, representative of the applicant, and Tom Carnival is also present here as the architect on the project. You gave a good overview. The property is currently two parcels, each with a detached single-family residents out along Nut Road. They're attached to each other. They're older, yes, there they are there, to older attached units along Nut Road. It's proposed to, and the next closest property is the Dunkin' Donuts. I would say that's to the east. And then there's another, well, it's not attached, but another set of semi-detached dwellings to the west. What the applicant's proposing is demolishing those two existing semi-detached dwellings on site, investing significant sums in improving the property with the rendered four-story building with 16 apartment units in there, enhancing the property with landscaping, stormwater management, 20 parking spaces. Currently, for the two single-family residents, there are only 3 total parking spaces available, two off-street parking for, I believe, 226, and then a single-car garage along Milligan Street for 224. This plan, besides constructing the building, is, proposing moving those improvements, demolishing the improvements off Milligan Street, enhancing the borders with landscaping, like I said, installing stormwater management, the EV charger units, handicap accessible spaces, and on top of it, the next closest residential dwelling, 228 Nut Road, will get a more viable and usable walkway from Nut Road along the side property, 5-foot wide sidewalk. I believe the area between the two buildings is 10 feet, where currently there's only I believe 2.26 feet between 228 Nut and 226 Nut. So, what is being proposed is a significant improvement over what's there today and an investment in the community along the Nut Road corridor. That's all I have. And if you have any questions specific regard to the building or anything else, we do have the architect and the property owner here as well.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Murray. Questions from council?
How much taller is the building than the buildings next to it or around it?
The word is approximately 10 feet.
Any other questions from council?
Mr. Murray, would you be able to describe, or the applicant describe the stacked parking? Because that's something that we've not, I've not seen in the borough before, so I'm just curious, a little more information about how the parking arrangement would work. and
I
how
believe-
how you keep people from being angry at each other.
Well, I believe the stacked parking is for particular units, so it's stacked, and those are associated with one particular unit. So it would only be, I would assume that's for the 2-bedroom units in here. It would be stacked for that unit only. It wouldn't be like unit 1's blocking in unit 2. It is like you have a single lane driveway for a residential house, so people pull into the driveway for those particular people. So it would only
So
be
the
for
parking
them.
is assigned.
Correct.
Okay.
And I believe on the parking plan, it actually shows which units they're for.
I'll, as liaison to the planning commission, I'll just share with Borough Council that I did specifically ask from the beginning whether the height of the building exceeded the regulations for that particular strip, and it does not by inches, apparently. So it literally, it is as built, it complies. So the concern, it is taller than most of that strip has 3-story buildings, at least on Nut Road. This is 4 stories, but it complies.
Other questions from council?
I had a question based upon a recent letter from, and which was discussed from Florence Mann of Milligan Street, which was brought up in the planning commission discussions concerning a fear or a belief that the sewage lines in that particular part of our infrastructure could not support a 20-unit apartment building. I just wanted to know whether borough manager can speak to that issue, just so that it's addressed for council to be aware of.
Sure. Obviously, they have to go through the process with DEP, but they also have to get a will serve letter. And our observation of the lines that are there is we have plenty of capacity to take on projects in the borough. And those lines are at a size that the flow rate would not be impacted by this particular development.
More questions from council? All right, seeing none, I will turn it over to members of the audience. If there's anyone here in person that would like to comment on this application, please state your name and address, and make your comments.
Hi, I'm Greg Schreiner. I live at 329 Morris Street, which
Right here. My back gate is right here. Right there.
So my back gate lines up with the entrance to the proposed plan. So first of all, I've said this at the last meeting, but I appreciate the board very much. I appreciate that you're looking out for the current residents of Phoenixville. And, we were talking about this being an improvement for the current residents of Phoenixville. I don't know if I heard that exactly, but I think that's the vibe I got. I think we all know this is not obviously an improvement for the current residents of Phoenixville. It's an improvement for the builders, which, by the way, are within their rights to do what they want. I'm not here to step on anybody's toes. That we follow the law, and that's what it's all about. So it's about making money, which is great. I'm for that. And it's about, I think what the board should be about, and I know you are, is about protecting the current residents. So I do appreciate your consideration for that kind of stuff. And I think my other neighbors are going to talk a lot about this stuff, so I'm going to keep my topics really brief. Obviously, the sewage concerns, considering the current pipes cannot hold the sewage for what's our current sewage problems. I know there's a neighbor or two that gets their basement pumped by the town of Phoenixville right now. So that is super curious to me that we're just going to tie into that and expect that's not going to be a problem. And I assume and I'm going to ask a few rhetorical questions. They're not pointed at anybody, but the board to reflect and us and the builders to reflect. I'm assuming we talked to the fire marshal, and if there's ever a dumpster fire, a car fire, the skinny alleyway can easily handle a fire truck quickly. That's certainly a concern. I'm also concerned with my own property. I'm not sure exactly where where the town owns. I know they own a few feet onto my yard, of course, but I feel like I have a right to have my property and my grass kept nice. I'm right across the street, so I'd like that to be kept clean and kept nice. Do I have a legal right to not hear trucks at 7 a.m. or 7:01 a.m.? No, I don't. But I think everyone in the neighborhood doesn't want to hear that for months on end. That goes without saying. I've talked a lot about no waivers, no variants. I want to get a shirt that says no waivers, no variants, and I'm very happy to hear that they're not applying for any. That's fantastic. But what if they do down the road? What if that tree in the front gets cut down? So we're just giving money to Phoenixville? Is that defense of the residents? Just them paying Phoenixville because they, went over their allotment of either a waiver or variance, cutting a tree down they shouldn't. So I just don't understand how that protects the current residents. Paying Phoenixville, which is great, get more money in our town, but that doesn't help the neighbors in any way. Yeah, so I hope we research the fire trucks. I hope we research the trash trucks, the sewage. And I think you're gonna hear a lot about parking, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schreiner. Anyone else from the public?
Hi, Florence Mano. I live at 320 Milligan Street. I'm a 47-year resident of the borough, and I've lived on Milligan Street for 39 years. I've seen a lot of good and a lot of not so good in that 47 years. I'm addressing this redevelopment. I understand that the property is in the developmental corridor, but the road Milligan Street is residential. After attending all but the first meeting on this project, the Planning Commission asked pointed questions. Does this building reflect and resemble the surrounding community and homes? They were asked about a center door. the architecture style, and the height, specifically the height. None of those areas resemble anything within several blocks. The only area that the building seems to resemble with the height and the architecture is Bridge Street. But that really doesn't seem like my neighborhood of where I live. 4 stories is overbearing. If you view 1033 West Bridge Street, well, that for anybody that knows, that's where Cannoli's restaurant was. The apartment building is 3 stories high, but it towers over the 3-story home that's next door. And this project is proposing 4 stories. Let's address the parking issues, which seems to be a mute issue, but currently 12 residents on Milligan need to find other parking not on Milligan Street. They have to go to Lincoln Avenue or Morris Street. This project requires 20 parking spaces. It includes 2 handicapped, 2 EV parking stations. That leaves 16 spaces. My understanding is that 4 of them are stacked. I don't know how it's going to work with stacked. And they're going to be 2-bedroom apartments. Conceivably could have 3 people in there that have 3 cars. We're only offering 2 spaces. To get the amount of parking that they needed for the 4 stories that they had, they eliminated common grassy area, and added impervious blacktop. I didn't see that the water runoff was addressed. And they did the stacked parking, so they did not have to eliminate the 4th story. Do any other apartments in Phoenixville have stacked parking? I'd like to know how that works out. Other concerns, the widening of Milligan Street at the entrance, how is that going to work? More traffic. We've already experienced more traffic with Dunkin' Donuts. Our traffic starts at 5:30 a.m. on Milligan Street. You can see it on my Ring doorbell. Not to mention the increase of construction equipment and the crew to build it. That's going to come up a 17-foot wide street. That's how wide Milligan Street is. Who's going to inspect the street for decay of blacktop and curbing? Currently, besides the road decay, the dumpster that they have, which I may have addressed this and given you ideas of how the trash is collected on Milligan Street, but the trash truck and the recycle truck cannot even directly turn into Milligan Street to collect our trash. They must come down back into the section of Milligan Street between Lincoln and Cemetery Lane, back all the way down Milligan to collect their trash, and then come straight into Milligan. When they collect the trash at Dunkin' Donuts, they can't turn into Milligan Street from the Gay Street end. They must come in their parking lot and do some maneuvers. Anyway, and I know you addressed, thank you, Mr. Moore, for addressing the sewerage, but it still concerned me that they must pump once a month at the intersection of Lincoln Avenue and Milligan Street and Lincoln Avenue and Morris Street. To me, that doesn't seem like something that we should have to do. Is this gross neglect, or is this a common practice in all communities that they pump the sewage? Because one of our neighbors received raw sewage in his basement 3 times, and I've just found out that another neighbor is having sewage issues in their basement area on Nut Road. So that bothers me because I don't know where they're hooking into the sewage. I know they're doing the electric and the water on Milligan Street, but where is the sewage being hooked up? None of us have backflow valves on our sewage, so that could possibly give us a gift of raw sewage in our basement. I'm sure that in some way this project is going to be passed. We would hope that that you would think of the neighbors and the community that you represent and the concerns that we have, and taking it to heart. We also ask, and you did say there's no waivers or variances that they're asking for. Just please think of the town view as you're coming into Phoenixville and you're driving down Nut Road from Schuylkill Township to East Pikeland. Is this what we want our Nut Road to look like? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mano. Anyone else from the public?
Hi, good evening. My name's Kristen Martin. I live on Mara Street. I am to the left of Greg, so my back property is to the left of this development. I would just piggyback basically on everything they said. I absolutely despise this project. I will be looking at this, like I will have no privacy. They will have all vision to my entire backyard, which is now quiet, quaint. We live in a nice, quiet residential neighborhood. I would even rather have a Starbucks back there than this proposal, because the Starbucks wouldn't be able to see into my backyard. Even a dental office, a doctor's office, some townhomes, anything but this project for all of the reasons that have already been mentioned. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Anyone else in the public?
James Yonkers, 300 Nut Road, Phoenixville. I am right across from the Boston Market that exists now on that corner. My backyard and parking is on Milligan Street, down the street from this project. I learned about this project and started looking into it. You know, I'm in the fix-it business myself, so I know a little bit about this, that, and the other thing, you know? And I learned of how big it was. And as my neighbors have said about the sewage and the water and the parking, and hey, I'm not against anyone. This is America. Pursuit of liberty, justice, and, you know, happiness for everybody. Don't bother me that this guy wants to improve his land, but this thing is just too big, you know? Let's put the cat on the floor. We know the Planning Commission overseeing a lot of things so it gets to this far, okay? And the president of the Planning Commission also has to be the architect who recused himself in public. That's right, you know? He did the right thing. He got good capital. He got the attorneys that are in this building with the borough council, policemen, people, got all that, okay? They got everything that they wanted. I'm upset with how big it is, you know, and how it passed, how they get to do this, take away pervious land, the parking issues, all that. It is not right, because if somebody recuses himself, all the other people in the council or in the planning commission just go along with his vote. What was it, 5-0? You know, Mr. Weiss and I believe not Miss Dugan, Mr. I can't see that far. Read it. Carmen, yes, are both our councilmen in our ward where this is happening, I believe, you know? And I'm sure I'd be willing to bet everybody on this panel has more than a 12-year Catholic education like I got. I ain't got no letters behind my name, but what I have is common sense, okay? Again, I'm not against anybody improving this town. You know, I've been in that house 25 years. I came to this town in 1987. So I got more time here than I do where I come from, the city of brotherly love, you know? The last time I was in front of council, I had a little problem with the parking situation next to my home. If you guys are familiar, going up Lincoln Avenue, you make that right-hand turn off of Nut, and there was no parking from where like my back gate is to Nut Road, no parking. So that people could make the turn, you know what I mean? And then come up and go up the street. There was like 3 parking spots there. Then come home from work one day, there's a sign, boom, no parking from here to Milligan Street. What the heck? I called Billy Mossman. I happen to know him. Jimmy, there's nothing I can do. The Borough Council voted on it. Got my councilman at the time. He said, come out there. And he said, well, Jimmy, the buses for the school are going to go up this street. Look, don't let me stand behind the buses going up the street. I'm okay with that. But don't take these 3 parking spots because over the other side of Milligan Street, this street don't get any wider. So why them people allowed to park up there? I come back and ask the Borough Council that. Ain't got no answer. Shoved under the rug. Why? Because they wanted what they wanted. Just like it is now with this planning commission, they get it in front of you and you guys are the vote. I don't know. I don't want to say. I don't know what your vote's going to be. But when I first heard when you come out here that there was something in executive session on this, and I'd like to know what the heck that was. You know, I had the right to know what's going on with this property. You know, that thing, can you put the picture up, miss, please? Oh, I don't know who has the controller, but yeah. Look at that thing. Come on. That don't belong right there on that road. If it were 2 stories, nice like the people did with the apartments up there in Oakwood Manor, I wouldn't be in front of you people. Not at all. I ain't got no problem with somebody developing. Because like I said, I'm in the fix-it business. I'm sure there's something in that house might get fixed later down the road. I'm okay with it, you know? But I think that it is too big. And I think that everybody on this board should stop and think about the people in the neighborhood. Again, I told you they took those 3 parking spots. There still isn't no parking for people on Milligan Street. I give an okay for certain people to pull into my driveway because I'm blessed with a driveway. Go ahead, man. If I'm not there, pull in. I don't care, you know, because there is no parking, you know, and I'm okay with that. You know why? Because I help my neighbor, you know. Also, I had another issue when, with the Borough Council, and Mr. Kirkner, who recused himself, was the only one that came out to my home to see this. One day I come home from work. I see 4 big orange cones up on my front lawn. What the hell is this? I call, get myself all the way to Mr. Crack. This went back, and they came out there. Said, Jimmy, it's nothing we can do. It's PennDOT. PennDOT owns from here on center of the road, 25 feet in, which is like right in front of my front door, you know?
Mr. Yonkers?
Yes.
Can we keep our
Yeah.
comments relevant to the development at
Yeah,
hand, please?
well, this is getting to it, sir.
Okay, thank you.
This is getting to it.
All right, thank you.
When they did that and put a sign, you know, with a man crossing the street and a hand, I was a little upset, but guess what? I turned that around, looked like I hit the lottery. Nobody else here has one of those on their phone. Oh, no, you know, I got one. When I came out of my steps where I grew up, I had no grass. It was nothing but concrete. So to take that little piece from me was a lot. That was mine. But you know what? I gave it up for the good of the community or whatever. I didn't cut the grass right in front. I'm right in front of the judge. Says, Jimmy, do this for, you know, the community. I'm okay with that, but I'm not okay with that. It does not belong there. And I hope that this council looks as if it was in their neighborhood to do this. It doesn't belong there. It is too big. You know, if it was half that size, like I said, I wouldn't be in front of you because everybody deserves to have happiness in their life and pursue it, you know? That's in the Bill of Rights. So I hope you all take a look at what the impact of our community is, you know? Still, the 3 parking spots are not back there that are on the side of on the side there. And the buses are going up the other street. They eliminated the buses going up Lincoln Avenue. So still, when the Borough Council voted on something, they didn't even give it back to the community. That's what I'm trying to say. They said they did this because of the buses. The buses don't go up that street, you know? And if
Mr.
they
Yonkers,
did,
can you
everybody
please
else
keep
would
your
have it.
comments specific to the development?
Yes, that's what I was trying to make about the parking spots, sir. Okay, they took them away and they didn't give them back. And they still didn't give them back. There is no parking, is what I'm trying to say. And because of the planning commission, they passed this thing with this stacked parking. Who the heck ever seen that? I ain't never seen it being so. I do many properties around here. Where did that come from? You know where it came from? The architect drew it in there and then passed it through the planning commission some miraculous way. You know, it doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense at all. And neither does that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yonkers. Anyone else in the public like to make a public comment this evening?
Did I ask you about the executive session that you had on? I thought you were going to speak on that. That should be public knowledge.
This is not a question and answer session. This is public comment. Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment here in the room this evening? You've already had your opportunity to speak. Thank you.
2 cents.
Sure.
Thank you. So I think honesty is important. I'm not accusing anyone. I know it was just an estimate, but if that's a 10-foot difference, I'm 5'2". I mean, and I think everybody can see that.
All right. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Schreiner. Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to make a public comment?
Mr. Denlinger, there's no hands raised.
All right, seeing none, I will close the public comment period. I made this statement at Planning Commission, but for the benefit of the public that was not there that evening, I know some of you were. Planning Commission's role and council's role this evening is not whether you like this project or not. It is whether this project complies with our subdivision and land development ordinance and our zoning ordinance. Should you have, more esoteric reasons why you dislike this development, the way to go through that is to change our subdivision and land development ordinance. However, our current subdivision and land development ordinance applies to this development.
With the parking alone, it doesn't mean it.
Sir? So with that, I would entertain a motion on this development.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution officially conditionally approving the preliminary final subdivision and land development plan for the development known as 224, 226 Nut Road, SDLD.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I'm just gonna make a comment here. I agree that this is a disaster of what we've got here, but the problem is we can't change these ordinances or anything like that. There are rules beyond us. We are not the biggest, we're kind of at the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to this. When the county says this is what we have to do here and we agree to regional planning and everything, anybody can put up these huge monstrosities and we have very little control over what we can do with them. And it's frustrating, and I've been voting no on all of these things for 10 years, and I haven't gotten anywhere yet. It's got to be probably somebody in the county. I mean, this is not the level of the people to yell at right here. This is not what we can.
This is not public comment period. Please be quiet. You were given your opportunity to speak. It is now council's opportunity to speak.
So all that I'm trying to explain is I understand your problems, and it's not the people here. You shouldn't really be yelling at us, maybe the people above us in county or whatever, or we do regional planning. We can maybe fix some of this stuff, but I've been trying to do it for 10 years. Good luck. but I will continue to vote no, but it's only a protest vote because we kind of have to unless there's something really, really wrong with it. You know, we have to have a specific thing. And if it's in the laws, it's in the laws and there's nothing we can do. So sorry.
Any other discussion from council?
Mr. Murray, can you speak on any of the logistics that have gone into things like package delivery? That's one of my concerns with sort of there's without any nut road access or parking. Just curious if there's any thoughts on the actual package delivery. As we know, Amazon is a cluster at times.
We call Tom's the architect on the project, so.
I know my police department can boot a car very quickly, but we'd rather not have to be booting Amazon vans every 4 minutes out front.
No, there's a common, excuse me, a common mail room that's both accessible from Nut Road as well as from the back parking lot.
I have a question real quick while Tom is up here. I just wanted to ask about the stacked parking. How common is that as of a practice? And I believe with the project we approved earlier, wouldn't that have been considered stacked parking as well, the duplexes? But as an architect's perspective, how common is stacked parking in?
It's not 100% common, but it is doable. And especially with this project, it's got some two-bedroom units. The majority of them are one-bedroom units. And so there's limited stacked parking. The beauty of the stacked parking is it minimizes the impervious coverage. And especially with this lot in that it allows more green space. If you took those away, you'd end up stretching a bigger area of impervious area. So because we have, it's just more.
It's the same number of
It's more
parking spots.
efficient.
How would that take up more?
It's more efficient
But
within.
it's still the same number of parking spots. How would
Yeah.
that be more?
Because you're not having to extend the drive. It's sharing the 24-foot wide drive to get into 2 parking spaces as opposed to extending 9 feet for each other parking space down. You're taking the road with it. You follow the logic there?
That seems like a stretch to me. Sorry.
What
Sorry.
you're saving the drive length.
We need another driveway to get to the other side of the park.
Right.
Or you're extending it for every.
Which you don't have the room for. I got it.
No, but it's more efficient to have stacked parking than not to.
I understand what you're saying. Okay. Sorry, James, you had other questions?
Any other discussion from council? Ms. Harden?
I heard a lot of concern from the public just about sewage and all of that. Is there anything that, we can speak to about that as far as the project?
Oh, the project's being designed with, and it's our understanding there is sufficient sewer capacity, both in conveyance and treatment capacity. If people are having their basements pumped, I have no idea why that's occurring. That could be because they've installed bathrooms in their basement, and that's where, for whatever reason that got there hooked up. We have no control over that, but this is being designed in full compliance with the subdivision land development ordinances regarding sewer planning and design. I also heard concerns regarding Milligan Street as well. There is significant improvements going on with this development, some off-site related to Milligan Street. I'm reading that the turning radiuses at the intersection of Milligan and Lincoln are being approved to improve those turning radiuses, as along with ADA curb ramps at that point. And then there will also be areas on Milligan Street along the frontage of the property back that'll have a full milling and overlay. So there will be improvement of Milligan Street at the rear of the property.
Any other discussion from council? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
All right, thank you.
Abstain.
One abstention. Motion carries 6-1 with one abstention.
Thank you.
Mr. Murray.
With that, we'll move on, continue our section, section 12 with, reports of committees, boards and commissions, continuing with Phoenixville Regional Planning Committee, Mr. Kirkner, unabstained.
Thank you, Mr. President. Not much to report. We've adopted a 2025 working plan, and we're going to discuss affordable housing next month. But it seems that Phoenixville is light years ahead of the other members of the Municipal Planning Committee in terms of affordable housing initiatives. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Kirkner. Ms. Dugan with Rec Board.
I have a whole bunch of programs to talk about. First, we have Parents Friday night, night out. It's it's for ages 6 to 12 on February 28th, March 28th from 5:30 to 8:30. Grandparents Getting Started is Saturday, February 22nd from 9:30 to 12:30. Positive Coaching Alliance drop-in workshop is on March 8th from 2 to 4, and that one's free. Phoenixville Animal Rescue is in need of, they're having a drop-off point at the Recreation Center, and the following items are needed: towels, paper towels, bleach, laundry detergent, adult dry dog food, puppy dry dog food. The rescue uses Purina One products, leashes, collars, and crates. And thanks for your help. Also, Schools Out camps. There are several of them. Check the website for them, and those things fill up quickly. The basketball, the pop-up basketball for ages 7 to 17. The registration is now open. Music, Mind, and Mixing with the Spin Therapist is Mondays, February 24th to April 28th. The STEM Spire is a student-run program for grades 1 to 6, Mondays 6 to 7, February 10th, February 24th, March 10th, March 24th. The co-ed flag football training academy for the winter is Saturdays, February 22nd to March 29th, and that's for grades 1 through 8. There's the co-ed NFL Flag Football League for spring 2025. That's Sundays, April 6th through June 8th for ages 5 to 17. Beginner golf on the session 2 started February 2nd to March 20th. Multi-sport tots, there's a lot of different choices with this too, with times. There's Thursdays or Tuesdays or Saturdays, or Thursdays or Saturdays. So check that on the website as well. Soccer Shots indoor soccer at the Renaissance Academy for ages 2 to 8, and that's Monday, February 3rd to March 10th. Soccer Shots spring soccer is 3 different programs they've got going on wet Tuesdays 2/25 to 5/13, Saturdays 3/22, March 22nd to May 10th, and Sundays March 23rd to May 18th. Strength and stability fitness classes are Wednesdays, February 19th to April 2nd. That's an 8-week program. Watercolors for beginners, and that's on Wednesdays from 6:30 to 7:30, March 19th to April 23rd. They've got several levels for that too: advanced beginner. Let's Go Shuffle Football or Shuffleboard. That's Mondays from 6:30 to 8:30, March 24th to May 12th. Kickball League with Heyday Athletic on Morris Street Park, Tuesdays and Thursdays, March 11th to May 1st. The Pickleball League is with Heyday Athletic. It starts is Tuesday, 6 o'clock, April 15th to May 20th. Pickleball Clinic, this is the last one, the Pickleball Clinic Universal Rackets, is the outdoor session begins Tuesday, March 15th, and the indoor session is from February 25th to March 25th.
Thank you, Ms. Dugan. With that, we'll move on to Tree Advisory Committee with Mr. Carmenito.
Yes, Mr. President, Tree Advisory Commission met this month, first time in a while due to the holidays and snow. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend, but at our meeting, we discussed some inspections from our arborist as well as his review of a land development project for 100 School Lane. We're working through our tree removal list for 2025 and beginning to plan our plantings for the upcoming spring contract and volunteer plantings. Looking forward to that.
Thank you, James. And with that, we'll move on to Human Relations Commission with Ms. Berkeley.
Thank you, Mr. President. We continue to meet on the first Monday of every month at the Rec Center. We do continue to go through the scorecard, and next month will be a working meeting on a section of that. There is one opening, possibly, we haven't heard back. But if you are interested in this commission, it is a public meeting, so certainly come and join us or reach out to me and I'll be happy to provide any information.
Thank you, Beth. We'll roll right back to you with Personnel Public Safety Committee.
Yes, you mentioned before that, our call for anyone that would like to be part of the commission. We don't have any current vacancies, but we certainly list those. And it's a really easy process to reach out to one of your council members or myself. And then it goes through this committee for a quick talk and interview. And then it would come to council. And then I do have a motion to make. So I'd like to make a motion to notify the Civil Service Commission to commence the testing process and submission of an updated eligibility list for sergeant and corporal.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Berkeley, second by Mr. Weiss. Questions on the motion for the updated eligibility lists? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Anything else, Ms. Berkeley?
That's it for now. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. We'll move on to Mr. Moore with Parks and Recreation Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. We already approved on the consent agenda several community event applications. We had a conversation in the last meeting about progress, which I appreciate from staff, about the MDM Preserve Trailer Street Park and the property allocation on that. Progress is continually to be made on that. There was also a discussion about the draft updated Parks and Recreation ordinance. Had some interesting ideas and questions about that. I think that's continuing to go to the policy committee. So we had some observations and so forth, but nothing really major to discuss about that. So then the one piece of business that I will have tonight is we had a further discussion concerning the South Street, the trail connection originally discussed from Dayton Street into the heart of Reservoir Park. And then there was we decided not to do that full one from Dayton Street. There is still the South Street easement, and the Parks and Recreation Committee concluded that that trail is also unnecessary. So on consideration and discussion with Borough Management, it's recommended, and I'm going to make a motion to not make a trail connection from South Street to Reservoir Park through an existing public trail, landscaping and open space easement and right of way, and direct the borough solicitor to draft the necessary documents to discharge the easement.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Moore, second by Mr. Weiss. Questions on the motion? I wasn't part of the meeting for the Parks and Recs Committee, but I understand that there's quite a history on this. This is one of those examples that I feel that having an easement to connecting to Reservoir Park for an entire development was a strong starting point by our predecessors that has actually led to us forcing all future developments to make connections to parks and trails. So I feel like this was sort of a starting point for some of the things that were being, celebrated about now in terms of making connections to various points, making sure there's safe connections for children and adults alike to make access to the playgrounds and parks that we have. And knowing that there's not any safe sidewalk when you walk south from this location, it seems that this provides a safe access and egress. So that's my point on this. I'm curious what everybody else on council is thinking.
Mr. President, I'll offer that I feel that there is sufficient sidewalk and trail access in the surrounding neighborhood to Reservoir Park. I mean, we have a great trail now up from Fillmore, across the street from the rec center, all the way up there past the gardens, or driving into it. So I take notice of what the resident who spoke earlier about, you know, if you really want to walk into the park from Dayton Street, and just walk in the grass. So having to like manipulate the landscape and lose grass, or lose, I mean, you can make it impervious and so forth, or pervious, but you know, there's nothing wrong with just walking on the grass in our park, because that's what they're there for. So I think this is a little bit of a solution in search of an issue that isn't really an issue.
I would just counter that the grass solution is not an accessible solution. So yes,
Okay, true.
able-bodied can certainly walk into the grass. Certainly understand that, but I do feel that this is, and we have, so I do feel like that is at least a counterpoint to that.
We did have a discussion about looking, and again, I wasn't in the last meeting, but there had been discussion, or at least kind of like the idea punted out there about making privacy or looking at some way of having landscape to give privacy to the neighbors. Where did that discussion go? Is that not feasible? Just looking at creative solutions.
We have not, at this point in time, the solution is we're not doing the trail from South Street to the east. Depending on what you do here, if you agree with this motion, we wouldn't do anything. If you decide that you want to continue to try to put in a trail, being in the proximity it is to the neighbor, I would suggest that if that were to happen, we would want to put in landscaping and separate the two, because that would be the right thing to do.
Excuse me, I was the sole vote against this in committee. I see both sides of this, where I do think there is some opportunity to do something good here and to continue some of the work that we've done in terms of intermodal connectivity and connecting trails. I do also understand, just if we're not going to do this, the desire to just put it to bed once and for all, so that everybody can move on, both council and local residents. I still have faith that there might be a creative solution out there, which is why I voted against it. But just to sum up some of the conversation and some of the back and forth that happened, that was my take.
Yes, if I may, Mr. President, and you made several valid points. I would just add that as representative of the north side, and I think I've said this before about the previous trail plan, there has not really been a hue and cry from residents of the ledges to have some kind of connection like this. And so it sort of reprises a point that Mr. Moore made. Are we putting a solution out here that's kind of in search of a problem? And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
I'm sorry. So if we vote for this, it doesn't mean that there's no possibility of a trail in the future up there. It just would be, it couldn't be on this property any longer, this parcel.
That's correct. The opportunities that still exist is that we have property north of that, a triangular shape of property. And then there's the PennDOT right of way. If and when PennDOT ever releases that right of way, it will go to the underlying property owners, of which we're part of that. Certainly it's a much larger location. It would actually provide the opportunity to go from Dayton back into the park. But until PennDOT does that, and we don't know when that's going to be. They have indicated they want to release all of those types of properties, but it's PennDOT.
And it seems like for there to be a significant trail across the north side, that's going to have to happen first, right? Otherwise, this parcel here would just be kind of like a path to
South Street.
South Street.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll just start talking. I totally don't understand why we have to do this project at all. Like, I mean, I have never heard anybody complain about this particular part, and we have got so many projects and so many good ideas through this town and so many better ways to spend money that I kind of feel like we're inconveniencing and making residents and neighbors to the idea upset. And there's just no reason that we have continued to do this, because this is just not as Mr. Moore and Mr. Kirkner also said, it's a solution in search of a problem. So I just really would like to just abandon it and move on to something more effective.
Any other comments from council? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-3. Anything else out of Parks and Rec?
Nothing further. Thank you.
Mr. Carmenino with policy?
Yes, Mr. President. First item under our policy agenda is, so policy met this month. We discussed number of policies which are before you tonight. And the first item on the agenda is I'd like to make a motion to schedule and advertise an ordinance amendment to Chapter 2 animals.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Carmenino, second by Mr. Strenfeld. Questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 8-0.
Next item on the agenda is motion. I would like to make a motion to schedule and advertise an ordinance amendment to Chapter 15 motor vehicles and traffic.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Carmenito, second by Mr. Strenfeld. Questions on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And the last item under policy is I'd like to make a motion to schedule and advertise an ordinance amendment to Chapter 16 Parks and Recreation.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Carmenito, second by Mr. Weiss. Questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's all for policy. Our next meeting is February 25th at 7 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Carmenito. We'll move on to infrastructure, technology, transportation, and sustainability with Mr. Weiss.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion to authorize staff to issue a request for proposal for a feasibility study for a potable water reuse project. Second.
Motion by Mr. Weiss, second by Mr. Strenfeld. Questions on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anything else out of ITTS?
Nope, our next meeting is 1 week from tonight on the 18th at 7 p.m. and we love visitors. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. We'll move on to Ms. Dugan with finance.
Well, I guess I am making a very long motion, so hold on. I'd like a motion
Deep
to,
breath.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the engagement of Keystone Engineering Group pursuant to the engineering design services proposal dated January 8th, 2025, related to preventative odor mitigation for the wastewater treatment plant in the amount not to exceed $58,930, presented pursuant to Keystone's participation in the CoStar's bidding program, provided and subject to the engineering design services agreement prepared by the Borough solicitor, and further authorizing Somax Environmental Incorporated and Somax Bioenergy LLC to continue to operate as the general contractor for the PVX NEO project through completion pursuant to the July 25th, 2019 Somax proposal, including without limitation, overseen and coordinated with Keystone Environmental, and in furtherance of the foregoing, further authorizing Somax, Keystone, and Borough staff to identify the necessary equipment and qualified manufacturers and installers thereof required to bring the PXV NEO system online.
Second, congratulations.
We have a motion by Ms. Dugan, second by Mr. Weiss. Clearly a motion written by our solicitor. So thanks for
Like
ending
another
our night
language.
on that, Scott. I think you owe her a beer. Questions on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Ms. Dugan, anything else out of finance? Very good. This will open up the second and final round of public comment. So if any members of the public are joining us via the Zoom platform, then they would like to raise their hand digitally. A member of our staff will go through the list and unmute you and announce. And those joining us in the room, if you want to make your way to the podium, we do ask that you sign in on the sign-in sheet for the purpose of our minutes and announce your name and address for council.
David Zanuck, Fillmore Street. My question is, and I've always heard this word two different ways. Is it potable or is it potable?
Potable.
And some people say you put water in a pot, so it has to be potable, but I don't know. And anyway, what is that? What's the reason for doing that?
Dr. Sanik, this is public comment period, not question
Oh,
and
it's
answer
just
period.
nobody answers questions here anymore. I'm sorry.
I'd be happy to talk to you afterwards.
You know, but I wish you would. I wish some of these questions could get answered here. They're not real deep, but anyway, I know you have your reasons. And then I think that's really, the other thing was, you can't comment on it anyway. Can I ask you can't ask a question, is that it?
You can ask, but.
And Dr. Sanik, any of us would give you time after the meeting, but this is public comment.
Well, then, I was going to ask about these PennDOT right-of-ways, but I don't know. That's a funny situation. What can I tell you? I don't, I mean, the whole, well, you don't answer questions anymore. I mean, what, I don't know why. I don't get that. But anyway, enough said.
And any members of the public joining us via Zoom?
Mr. Meadows, I've turned in your microphone.
All right, thank you. Just a general comment regarding the subdivision and land development proposals tonight that were reviewed, specifically the one along that road. It sounded to me like there was some frustration and hesitancy among maybe at the planning commission and at council level, because you have to live by the current zoning ordinance. And I don't know that it's necessarily what the county dictates, it's what you dictate or your predecessors did 8 or 9 years ago when they approved the current zoning. So you have to live with it. Your solicitor advised you right. If the developer comes in and meets the requirements of the zoning, you have to approve it. Right now, there is a process going on, the once in 10-year development or process based on the comprehensive plan that was approved 1.5 years ago. Now that the results of that plan are looking at zoning amendments that should be made to allow to control future zoning. So if any of you want some input, I've made most of these meetings, and there's probably 2 or 3 of you who have made them. Now is the chance, get involved with that, either at your special task force meeting or when it comes before you, but by then it's probably already done. It's water under the bridge, and you're not going to change it at that late date because there's been months and months of consultants and stuff. I'm just saying, if you really don't want 4-story buildings along that road, if you don't want developments with narrow streets that now you have to buy a tractor-drawn aerial that is a $2 million fire truck that requires 2 drivers to operate in the future. If you want to have ample parking with new developments, now is the time to get involved and change the zoning while the process is in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Any other members of public joining us via Zoom or in the public or in the council chambers tonight?
Mr. Ewald, there's no further hands raised.
Thank you, Ms. Logan. We'll close the second and final round of public comment. Any comments from council tonight? Let's close out the second portion of communications council participation.
I did want to express my appreciation to our police chief and the police force for the spontaneous. You had a lot of people taken to the streets Sunday night, and I saw plenty of footage. I don't know how long how much extra people you had out there, but I appreciate you being able to handle that particular workload, and of course, EAGLES. Eagles.
Go Birds. I'll just make one comment as a follow-up. Phoenixville Borough Council does follow the Robert's Rules of Orders, and that's why we dictate that the public comment is public comment and not public back and forth. So that is a Robert's Rules foundational tenet, and that's why we follow that strictly, is to keep orderly meetings. All of our committees, boards, and commissions have much more interactive dialogues and are more open on that front. With that, in your packet tonight are all your staff reports. And then on the back of your agenda tonight are our upcoming meetings for the rest of February into March. And I do want to just take one moment, as we do monthly now, to recognize the employee service anniversaries for February, which this month totals 106 years of dedicated service to the Borough of Phoenixville, including Melissa Gibbons, Phoenixville Parks and Recreation Director, 23 years of service, one of our longest tenured employees, with a great department there. Jim Ross, who is in our water treatment as our mechanic and relief operator. He has 21 years of service to the water treatment plant. Lieutenant Brian McIntyre, Police Department. He is in our force for 18 years now. Corporal Anthony Dutchkowski, Dutch, in our Police Department. One of the first officers I had the pleasure of helping swear in 9 years ago. Don Klein in our water treatment plant, also as a mechanic and relief operator. He is 8 years in. Joe Fro has been with us as the lead parking officer for 7 years now. Tom Madden has been our codes permit coordinator department. He's 6 years in the department. Officer Jeremy Fonseca in our police department for 6 years now. Alexis Showers has been our AP clerk for 4 years, and Pat McCann in our customer service representative for 4 years. So we do appreciate all the hard work and dedication that our dedicated workforce puts into making Phoenixville the best place in Chester County. With that, is there a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Go Birds. Have a great night.